Mitch, with the guys you can talk about tonight, seeing Nick Smith at the end of the first round and Martin Bailey, what stood out about both those guys specifically, and why did you feel like they were good additions to this team?
Well, Nick Smith, we had much higher in the draft, and he's young, right? And he's got great size. He's a shooter in our league that's at a premium. Athletic. Last week I spoke to his coach, Eric Musselman, who I had in Los Angeles, and we're friends. And we spoke about all his players in Arkansas. And Nick was one of them. He spoke very highly of him. So, to us, of course, you always got to wait for 3 or 4 years to look back, and then you really find out how good your draft was, right? But we feel very fortunate to get Nick where we did. And Amari, it's the same thing. He, at 41, we had him much higher. Another young, ball handling guard, played in a big time program and had a very good Chicago pre-draft. But, another young player that, maybe, well, first of all, we'll bring him to Summer League, right? And he'll get time there, and he'll come to training camp, and probably end up falling into our developmental program. But you don't know. We'll learn more during Summer League. So we're pleased. We're pleased to have the draft that we did. Who's that?
Second round pick. Yeah, the first round pick.
Nick Smith?
Nick Smith, sorry.
You look at the mock drafts. I would guess he's probably in the top 13, but I don't look at those things too much.
But way back at the beginning of the college season, did you, before his injury, did you have were you thinking he was going to go lottery pick?
Oh well, we had him in the top. I don't have it with me, but I think we had. I think we had him in the top 16. He missed some time this year with an injury, but we looked into it and we feel comfortable. And he came back and played. So
I mean, you can't talk about the trades, but just the draft as a whole tonight. Everybody you picked, how would you assess how you able to kind of get the players, I guess, that you wanted to tonight?
Like I said, we're very pleased, okay. But you have to remember that you get to look back on it in 4 years, and then you find out how you really did, right? So I can't remember a draft that I left that I wasn't very happy, right? And they're all not great drafts when you look back on it in 4 years. So, but yeah, we're pleased to have the draft we did. We think we've, for our plan, right, which is to build a team, through the G League, drafting, maybe making a savvy trade. If there's a free agent that makes sense, of course we'll do that. But we look to build through the draft, and we added 4 players into the system. And they might not all be on our roster next year, the Hornet roster, but with the new rules, with having a third two-way, it's getting closer and closer to what baseball does with the minor league system. So it's really important that you, especially for a market like ours, is to build through the draft and get players and talent in the system.
And then how do these moves that you made tonight, do you think set you up the rest of the offseason going forward? Not just to make some more moves with your free agency stuff.
Well, we got a lot of work. I think you know that. The next threshold is July 1st. The free agent. We've got a couple of restricted free agents. So that's the next thing. So to get through the draft, we're pleased. We've got a couple of days now to get the kids in, have a press conference, have a little fun with them, and then we'll start to continue to focus, on July 1st, right, which is our free agents and then any other needs we may have.
When you think about, you've used the word young a lot in terms of the evening, and does that create a wider berth in terms of whether or not they have success or not, in terms of them being younger, and almost kind of makes it more of not a shot in the dark, but more of a wider berth in terms of what the outcomes can be for each player?
Yeah, well, it's tougher, for a general manager, it's much better, to draft a 4-year kid, right, who's 22 years old, and you've got 4 years, to look at the kid, and, and plus when you're 22, 23, you're grown up, you're a lot more mature and professional, right? So we end up, the way it's gone the last 20 years, you end up drafting, young kids, young adults, young men at 19, maybe 20 years old, especially in the lottery and often in most of the first round. And it takes time, so you have to make a decision early on, as to potential. And then, sometimes it'll take, 3 or 4 years to develop a player. But, that's why I think it's important to get players into the system. And our scouts in Greensboro, our coaches in Greensboro, if you look at their record with, DeMonte, the Martin brothers, Jalen McDaniels, Nick Richards, Mark, they've done a good job, drafting, young talent and, developing them in the G League. Now, that's not to say all the players that we draft will be in the G League, but even last year, Mark Williams was in the G League. Okay, and then he came out of the G League and finished the season really, really strong. And we look at him as one of our most valuable pieces right now. So, you end up drafting young men, okay, and you do have to wait, for them to develop, and you're hopeful that, whatever you saw, continues to grow, and they turn into, a good player that can help you down the road.
With all those young guys from a veteran perspective, how do you feel like you're set up from a veteran leadership standpoint on the roster to kind of aid that process?
Well, I think we have a good mix, okay? I'm not sure if we have, that leader, that one veteran. I think you could look at a couple of guys on our team, you might say in a year or two, they'll grow into being leaders, right? But we don't have that one person. And for the last couple of years, it's fallen to the coach, to be the leader. And we're looking for somebody in the locker room that can fill that role, right? We're still going to have some needs to fill, going into free agency, other than, the obvious two, right? That are restricted. We'll probably need some help in the backcourt. And, can you get a leader? Somebody that can play and also, be a force in the locker room. That would be helpful, But yeah, the best thing to do is to get a player that's going to be your leader. And right now, that's one thing we really don't. We have a couple of guys that are growing to that direction, and maybe this is the year they emerge, right? When one emerges, but we don't have that person right now.
Which I don't know if we'll get to talk before this free agency starts coming up, but can you tell us where you stand right now on Miles Bridges? Is he somebody that you want to bring back? Planning on trying to protect him?
Yeah, we got a couple guys, right? I'm not allowed prohibited by the league, from discussing, free agency. I think it goes without saying, with PJ, every year he's gotten better. And last year he had a very, very good year, right? And over the course of the 4 years, he's really grown up and he's turned into quite the professional. So, we're very pleased, with his play on the court and off the court. He's really matured into a nice young man and a good player. No, same, no, I can't, I'm not allowed to. That's a tougher topic, right? He's been gone a year. Yeah, and it's difficult to kind of wade through in a press conference like this, so I'm gonna have to decline talking about it, right?
Let me follow up and ask, do you believe tonight's picks may have helped just in case, as insurance in case some guys leave? Do you think you've addressed preemptive strikes in terms of some guys leave or who stays or what have you?
What do you mean by some guys leave?
Well, I'm
Free
saying
agency?
you definitely got more wing guys just in case free guys leave during free agency or you don't choose some other guys.
Well, nobody can really leave because they're restricted free agents. Now we do have a couple of unrestricted free agents, so yeah, but you know, once we get players here in Charlotte, they like it here. Okay, and typically they end up living here and they don't leave here during the off season. And, you know, that's not the case with a lot of NBA franchises, right? You know, this is a great city and I think our players like to be here. Having said that, you know, yeah, there's a couple players that, you know, we're gonna have to figure out, you know, if we could bring them back. But I don't think the franchise in the city would be an issue. I think they want to be here. And so it's just a matter of, you know, a negotiation and looking at our draft and, you know, seeing, you know, what our roster is too. I mean, we do have, you know, part of the reason why we drafted the way we did was that we already, assuming we bring back a couple players as free agents, we're gonna have a lot of players on the roster. So we have to manage our roster as well.
Mitch, in terms of Brandon Miller, the number 2 pick, you've had a great track record drafting top 3, top 10. Compared to some of the other guys that you selected in the past that have gone to that area, where does the talent level for Miller compare to these other guys that essentially became all-stars?
Well, by taking them too, I think that speaks the world of what I think. Okay, and I know that, you know, there were other choices, right? But this kid is a dynamic wing, right? He's got great size, he's got great athletic ability. In our league, shooting the ball is a premium. You'll see him rebound the ball, you'll see him bring it up the court. You'll see him make right-handed, left-handed passes. You'll see him attack the rim. Like I said, one of the better shooters in the draft already, you know, as an outgoing freshman. In our league, you know, to get a player like that, you know, we think he has a chance to be a heck of a player. And it wasn't the easiest of decisions, you know, to go down that road. We put a lot of thought into it. There was a lot of spirited debate. I've always liked the kid, right? But like I said earlier, you've got to do your due diligence. And the other kid I like too. You know, I've seen him play multiple times in person, and we brought them both in twice, right? So it wasn't the easiest decisions, but you know, to get a dynamic wing like that in this league, you know, we think we're fortunate.
Mitch, you may have covered this earlier tonight, and if so, I apologize. I have another son, but what made you comfortable with Miller given the gun situation?
Well, with all our picks, you know, especially, you know, high picks, you know, we do a lot of due diligence. When you got the number 2 pick, you know, especially, you know, when there's an incident, right? That's not to say that we wouldn't do as much background research with somebody else, but yeah, I mean, we're aware of it, right? So I can't begin to tell you all the people, you know, that we talked to. You know, Buzz and I both went to Tuscaloosa and Birmingham and spent 2 days there about 3 weeks ago. And spent time with, you know, a lot of university people, a lot of people in the legal system, you know, that we talked to get a confident or a comfortable level with, you know, what took place beyond what we read, right? And I'm not sure if everybody in here, you know, knows, you know, what took place, right? You know what you read. So, you know, we felt it was important for us to go there and, you know, get as much information as we could firsthand. So we drafted them. So that tells you that, you know, we're comfortable. Yeah. And we spent a lot of time, a lot of background, a lot of interviews, brought the kid in twice. So, you know, we're comfortable. Obviously, we made the decision to draft him.
Mitch, LaMelo was mentioned by Brandon in his comments about him making you kind of feel at home, and we saw LaMelo also at his workout or whatever in the video that was put out by the team. did he take on more of an increased role this year with you guys, trying to evaluate these guys and kind of help with the process at all?
Well, we didn't ask, or solicit his opinion, but, I did tell him when the players were gonna come in, he's in here every day, right, getting treatment on the court, running, shooting, lifting weights. So I see him every day, and, you always have a conversation, how's it going, how's the draft, what do you think? And I said, listen, these guys are coming in, why don't you come by and watch? Okay, so several of our players came by and watched the workouts, and that's, something that I don't recall Miller doing in the past. He sat with our coach, he sat with Michael, he sat with the new to-be owners. So it served a lot of purposes for him to be here. And that's typically not something that he's done in the past. He's kind of in and out, right? And he seemed at home, hanging out with the coach and ownership. When the players were working out, he paid attention, but he wasn't involved in the process or the decision. I would never ask the player, what do you think we should do? Right? But yeah, he was there. Yeah, and Mark was there. Cody was there, so we had other players there as well.
Was to pick up on that, to see LaMelo out there taking, I guess, a little bit of ownership, but just being there and just taking a little bit of part of this franchise and being there for you guys. What does that say, I guess, about his development and his growth as a leader in this franchise, and also where's he, I guess, now with his rehab? He's kind of on schedule the way you guys had hoped.
Yeah, his rehab, the bone was 100% healed probably 6 weeks ago. In terms of looking, at MRIs and X-rays, it's 100% healed. Okay. He's been on the basketball court for 4 to 6 weeks, running, jumping, shooting, handling the ball, running up and down the court. He has not scrimmaged yet. He's not played 1-on-1, 2-on-2. He could, but we're not even, July 1st yet. What's the rush? Right. So, he's, I can't say ahead of schedule. This is exactly what the doctors expected. So, we're good. We're doing. And there was another part to the question too.
Yeah, just the leadership part. Wasn't I kind of seeing him?
Well, it's natural for a point guard to, at some point, assume a leadership position. It just is for some reason. They've got the ball in their hand, they're calling the plays, they're calling the defense. They're up front. It's natural for a guard to grow into a leader. And then that's not to say, there are not wings or centers that are leaders in this league. Of course there are. But I think it is easier for somebody in the backcourt. And that's our hope that he would, develop and grow into, he's only 21. Is that possible? Right, he's been here 4 years, and I think he's only 21. That's like ridiculous, right? So think of yourself when you were 21. Would you be capable to lead an NBA franchise?
Hell no.
Probably not, right? But that's our hope, right? That he'll grow into it. He's showing signs of doing it. So, Terry last year, gave us a lot of leadership. But that one guy that has that presence, we just quite don't have it yet, and it falls to the coach. So, that is something that we have to try to address.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you.